If you've clicked on this video, then I assume you have one of two questions. Either they made a lost video game, or are you seriously playing this? And the answer to both of those is yes. Released in 2008, Lost via Domus is a third-person action-adventure game set in the world of the TV show. With puzzles, item management, and even some gunplay, you could almost mistake it for a Resident Evil game if you squinted hard enough. You play as Elliot Maslow, a fictional character that doesn't actually appear in the show, so fans of Lost are quickly able to forget him, much like he forgets himself thanks to the scriptwriter's old favourite, amnesia. After crash landing onto the island, Elliot must figure out the basics. Who, what, when, where, how, and why. Not an easy feat, considering this was written by showrunners Damon Lindelof and Carlton Cuse, who I'm not sure ever answered these questions for the actual TV show. Maybe they did. All I know is I stopped watching after Jack decided they have to go back to the island, and I had no idea why. I mean, could you imagine if Tom Hanks went back to the island at the end of Castaway? Regardless of my thoughts on the show, I was interested in Lost via Domus for one reason. To find out what the heck the smoke monster is. You know, they probably should have just stuck with the polar bear. There was something else that tickled my fancy for this game, the achievements. Back in the late thousands, when I was a budding achievement whore, I remember hearing about this game and thought I had to play it. However, I definitely wasn't willing to buy it, and none of the local stores had it available to rent. Luckily, someone from school had bought it and allowed me to borrow it for a weekend. And for anybody wondering, yes, that student did end up graduating, despite making dumb decisions, such as buying the Lost video game. So let's pack our mystery box and board Oceanic Airlines Flight 815 as we go for all 30 achievements in 2008's Lost via Domus. Episode 1 begins on the aforementioned Flight 815, which, if you've never seen the show, does a great Lynyrd Skynyrd impression. Our protagonist Elliot, who we aren't supposed to know the name of yet, wakes up in the middle of the jungle, dazed and confused.
Alright.
After getting his footing, he ventures through the jungle, passing 2 dead bodies before eventually finding Hope. After she hands us some water, we enter a flashback scene, one of many the game has. In these scenarios, we must take a photo with the correct focus and framing to help us remember details from the past. This first one gives us 2 important pieces of information. Kate was in handcuffs, and juice is not yet being served. Looks like Kate will be deficient in both freedom and vitamin C. Back in the present, we press forward to find out that not all dogs go to heaven, as we find a good boy who survived the crash. Following him through the jungle leads us back to the crash site, though you could easily mistake it for Fire Festival. Racer X asks us to stop the fuel leak, causing us to play a pipe dream-esque puzzle game where we must insert correct fuses to achieve the required voltage. There are a handful of these puzzles throughout the game that get increasingly more difficult and make for a nice change of pace from the walking simulator. Completing this first puzzle saves the survivors, but more importantly, earns us our first achievement. Jack thanks us for our help and suggests we search through the wreckage for any clues to who we are. We find a chessboard, a water bottle, and a Squid Game contestant before finally finding our backpack. However, when we go to pick it up, we are assaulted by the main antagonist of the game, Beady Eyes. He's upset because the scriptwriters couldn't give him a normal name, like Steve. After asking for our camera and being called out by the other survivors, the episode ends with Steve threatening to kill us before knocking us out with Dust Boot. We also earn our second achievement. Episode 2 begins with 3 of the survivors running out of the jungle in terror, before Mary tells us his favourite Charlize Theron movie.
Monster!
Our next quest is to find our camera. Kate suggests we try the cockpit, but Jack isn't letting anyone through on account of the monster. As we try to figure out a way past Jack, we come across the girl from the jungle during the start of the game. Approaching her puts us into another flashback, which reveals that not only is she our girlfriend, but she's also an asshole, as she lies to an old Thai fisherman in order to steal his boat. Don't worry, I'm sure nothing bad will happen to her. Back in the present, we take a cue from our girlfriend and lie to Jack, telling him that Claire has fainted. As he runs to help the pregnant Patsy, we scurry off into the next section. Here we find Howard Hughes being a little sus boy. He tells us that we can use the banyan trees as cover, which will come in handy as the man in black has wafted in. We follow the debris and hide amongst the trees, avoiding the smoke monster and eventually gunfire from one of the others. However, he must not have seen the PSA that smoking kills, as the monster consumes him, suffocates him, dissolves him? The monster somehow kills him, allowing us to escape to the next area. Here we come across Augustus Hill gathering wood to build a raft. Not sure why he had to come this deep into the jungle to find a tree, but I'm sure he has his reasons. We are introduced to the trading system that allows us to trade scavenged items such as water bottles and coconuts for more useful items such as torches and even a gun. We load up on torches and head into the cave where darkness awaits. Carefully avoiding pits, bats and koala bears, we eventually make it through to the other side and reach the cockpit. Once again we need to complete a fuse puzzle, and when we do, we are rewarded with our camera and laptop. We earn our next achievement for completing the chapter, as it ends with us confronting Zepp and Roan before their friendly swamp thing knocks us out and we get vaccinated. Episode 3 begins with us back on the beach, and people are starting to grow suspicious. This is good news for Hurley because they aren't thinking about who keeps stealing all the food. We tell Saeed about our laptop and he says that Locke may have a battery for it, but he seems reluctant to let us have it. This forces us into another flashback where we learn that our now ex-girlfriend's name is Lisa Gellhorn and that Locke used to be really different. Using this newfound information, we convince him to help us, earning another achievement in the process. As we enter the jungle, Johnny Gat warns us about the others in the area, but thankfully they shoot like stormtroopers, so we are able to navigate through without issue. In the next area, we find the infamous hatch, one of Locke's many secrets. After a quick poetry reading, he leads us to a cave and quotes Yoda from The Empire Strikes Back.
Only what you take with you.
Once again, this cave is dark and full of hazards, but thankfully we have a guide in Lisa. Following her eventually leads us to an open area, whereupon we jump down and find a corpse and a compass. As we do, Locke appears and questions what we found. We ask him to help a brother out, but he demands we throw the compass to him first. As terrifying sound from within the cave draw closer, we relent and toss him the compass. In return, he stops being a tosser and pulls us up, at which point he gives us the battery. Examining the compass, Locke noticed that it says,
Via Domus.
He said it!
That's Latin. Means the way home. Very interesting.
He promptly hands the compass back to us and tells us to follow it, and we may find the answers we're looking for. What we do find is the end of the chapter and our next achievement.
There it is!
Episode 4 begins with an explosion in the distance and our newly found compass pointing towards it. I don't think we needed the compass to tell us to head in that direction, because there is fuck all else going on around the island. Now that we have a battery, we need to go and talk to Saeed. Kate tells us he is near the hatch which was blown open, hence the explosion. Navigating through the jungle, this time using our compass as a guide, we come across Jesus packing for a 3-day vacation. He warns us about the hatch and tells us to turn around, but the compass is pointing towards achievements, so we promptly ignore him and carry on. Meeting up with Saeed, we give him the battery, but he says he can't allow us to enter the hatch until we can prove who we are and gives us the passenger manifest. Back on the beach, we try to get some answers from Hurley. He explains what the manifest does and reminisces about a hotel back in Sydney, which triggers another flashback. Here we learn that Rico no longer has to pay alimony, and that our name is Elliot Maslow, but you and I already knew that, so we're happier for Rico. Returning to Saeed, we tell him our name and he can clearly see we are on the manifest. With that, we are finally allowed to enter the mysterious hatch. Through the side door. Once inside, blast doors seal us in. Saeed reminds us to enter the numbers when the beeping starts, which we do, earning another achievement and stopping something potentially bad from happening, I guess. In order to open the blast doors, we need to complete 3 fuse puzzles. The difficulty on these has increased, but we still managed to solve them all and activate the switch. Doing so has the opposite effect, and we are locked in the computer room behind more blast doors. A black light comes on revealing a hidden map that will prove useful, but for now we need to override the system as the counter ticks down to just 4 minutes. It turns out we need to input Via Domus into the computer, something I certainly didn't struggle to figure out.
Via Domus. That's Latin. Means the way home.
The chapter ends with Jack and Saeed confronting us. It turns out they didn't like what they found on our laptop, as we apparently have surveillance maps and a list of illegal weapons. We argue that those are no worse than what happens in the film Bone Tomahawk, but the two men doubt us and lock us in a holding cell. At least we earn another achievement for our efforts. Episode 5 begins where Episode 4 left off, because of course nobody was going to let us out. Kate is on numbers duty and comes to check on us. We ask her to let us out, but she explains that what they found on our laptop doesn't look good, forcing us into another flashback. This time we learn that Steve works for Discount Terrence Stamp, and because of him, Lisa no longer has to worry about forgetting to send a Christmas card to her sister. We also learn that we are in fact a journalist, not a warlord. Sadly. Kate buys it and reluctantly lets us out. Our next task is to find the hidden door from the secret map in the last episode. It took me longer than I would like to admit that the door is actually outside behind this waterfall, but we eventually discover it. It's sealed shut, so we're going to need an explosive touch to help unlock it. Returning to the beach, we ask some of our fellow survivors where we can find some dynamite. Locke and Sun are useless, but Hurley lets us know that there are some at the Black Rock. However, he warns us that it is dangerous, so we trade some bars and a book with Charlie for a gun, and now we have become the danger. One uneventful trip through the dark territory and a headshot on the guard later, we arrive at the Black Pearl. Inside we find our explosive lockpicks, but sadly the rum is all gone. Now cosplaying as an Ariana Grande concert goer, we need to gently walk our way back to the door. To me, this was the absolute best part of the game. We had to navigate back through the dark terror yet again, but this time we were unable to run due to the dynamite being unstable. It made me genuinely tense, and I even accidentally turned Elliot into confetti at one point. Sadly though, it was short-lived. Back at the door, we plant the dynamite and use the gun to blow it up, successfully opening it and earning us an achievement. Behind it we find a giant electromagnetic reactor which has been causing our compass not to work. A nearby computer allows us to deactivate the machine, earning us yet another achievement. The chapter ends with an ominous message left for us on the computer. Episode 6 begins with us wandering through the jungle following our compass. Suddenly, we are ambushed by the smoke monster, and the game turns into a Crash Bandicoot level for a hot minute. Eventually we make it to an open area with some pylons. The smoke monster corners us, but surprisingly doesn't kill us. I don't know why, and I'm sure it's explained in the show why it spares people, but I had stopped watching by this point. Juliet appears on the other side of the pylons and warns us not to cross them or we will die, but we call her bluff. This time around we talk to her, and she forces us into another flashback when she says that we killed Lisa Gellhorn. Here we learn that not only did Savo hire Discount James Packer to guard the elevator, but it was he who killed Lisa. After we ratted her out to him. For plot reasons, Juliet lets us through the fence and into the next station. Someone must have forgot to pay the power bill because it's almost pitch black. It wouldn't be until much later when mopping up achievements I'd find a cheeky workaround for this. Until then, we need to navigate the maze-like area, collecting fuses along the way for the puzzle at the end. This one proves to be quite difficult, mostly because we forgot to pick up one of the fuses. Once complete, we head up the ladder to the main floor. Up here we are finally reunited with Steve, who says it will take more than black smoke to get rid of him. One bullet to the head later, we have gotten rid of Steve and earned an achievement for our efforts. The Wishmaster applauds us before apologising, and the chapter ends with us being knocked out as the others surround us and another achievement pops. Episode 7 begins with us inside some sort of interrogation room. Tom introduces himself and says that Juliet has given us something to help jog our memory, forcing us into another flashback. This time around we learn that really was a Hattori Hanzo briefcase, and Mr. Savo is interested in the same research as Bill Murray at the start of Ghostbusters. We also see that Steve is holding Lisa at gunpoint, though I'm not sure why we are surprised by this as we did snitch on her in the previous flashback. Regardless, Tom is satisfied with what we say and lets us out. Just like in the previous episode, we need to scour the area for fuses in order to complete a puzzle. We find them in a variety of spots, including one on a shark that, honestly, I'm not going to question as we are so deep in the mystery box by this point, nothing feels out of place anymore. After successfully completing the final puzzle of the game, we enter the room to find Ben and Juliet looking ready to conduct a job interview. Ben tells us that our compass leads to a boat which will let us get off the island. In exchange for safe passage, he asks us to lead Jack to the Black Rock, which should be an issue for Elliot as he is quite good at betraying people. Now back in the camp, we find Jack and tell him we found a way off the island. We give him the old, "you'd better come take a look at this" cliche, which works, and he agrees to meet us there. We rendezvous with Jack Black and the Rock only to find Tom waiting for us. He honours the deal and gives us back our compass, though sadly we don't get a second one after it is revealed Kate has also been captured. A standoff ensues, but Jack submits as he too was seen sideways and knows what Tom is really packing. We are then thrust into the final flashback of the game where we finally learn Lisa's fate. Savo shoots her in the head for meddling in his affairs. Elliot manages to snap a picture of the murder and escapes, but ultimately realises he sacrificed Lisa for the sake of a single photo. Or at least that's what we would have learned had my game not frozen. I guess instead we learned just why Steve is called Beady Eyes. Back in the present, we shoot the nearby dynamite and sacrifice ourselves in the process to save Kate, earning another achievement. Though, to be honest, it took me 4 tries to realise this is what I needed to do. We overhear Jack and Kate talking about us. Jack says to leave us, but Kate refuses to, so they drag us away from the Black Rock and we come to when Juliet tells us to wake up. She tells us the boat to freedom is nearby, but Ben has ordered it to be destroyed. We ask why she is helping us, and she gives her reasons, but I stopped caring about the story 12 achievements ago and just want to get to the end. With the countdown having begun, we enter into another Crash Bandicoot section as we try, and fail, to avoid obstacles and snipers. With freedom in our sights, we leg it down the mountain and make it just in time to see Locke shoot the saboteur and sink their battleship. He wishes us good luck and we board the boat to Freedom Town, earning a 200-point achievement for our efforts. As he sets sail, Elliot turns back to look at the island, but a mysterious rumbling causes the following events to unfold.
Mayday! Mayday! This is... Mayday!
Elliot, you okay?
Lisa?
Oh my god, we made it. We're alive.
What a twist!
Look, I'm not going to pretend I understood what just happened. Perhaps if I'd watched the show I would have a better understanding and this final cutscene would be more impactful, but all it's done is reminded me of the ending to Stranded Deep and the horrible time I had unlocking those achievements. Still, the story has been completed and we are sitting at 14 out of 30 achievements, so let's knuckle down and earn the remaining 16. And with that, we are done with Lost via Domus. I'm definitely not going to say it's a great game, nor would I call it a good game, but I can't quite bring myself to call it a bad one either. Yes, it is clunky, yes it is convoluted, and yes it is buggy, but I did find it somewhat endearing and could see what the developers were going for. If I had to praise one thing, it would definitely be the score composed by Michael Giacchino. Not only was he the composer on the actual show, but he has scored many well-known films I'm sure you've all heard of, including the most recent Batman. If I had to recommend this game to anyone, it would either be fans of the show, who I'm sure have long since stopped watching this video, or fellow achievement whores like me. With a decent guide, you can earn all the achievements in one playthrough, and the entire run will take you less than 5 hours. So if that sounds enticing to you, quite literally, get lost. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please do leave a like, and if you want to see more achievement related videos, consider subscribing. Hopefully I'll see you in the next video, but until then, take care.